what else does hand movement give me? One thing it gives me is the ability to shift my hand around the board so that I can get access to a different set of notes that are the same pitches. They have different sounds, they have different neighboring notes, which allows me to do different kinds of musical ideas with those notes. So for example, if I want to play a line like this, if I'm playing it with my first finger position where the scale is here, and I go boo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, I can play around that note in different ways. I can pull off to it with my second finger, which is a nice strong phrase. If I was in this position, then I could pull off with my second finger. I can also leave my first finger there as a harmony for that note. If I was playing it in this position, I can't pull off to the note because it's the boundary of the hand position, but what I can do, if I wanted to have that note hanging out over the top, I would be able to do that. So the fact that I've got three different choices, I need a way to navigate around the board in order to take advantage of those choices. And that's another place that hand movement comes into play. So that's what I want to show you now. So this chart shows three different scales. They're actually all the same pitches. They're G Mixolydian scales. The Mixolydian scale is the same as the major scale, but the seventh is flatted. It's also called the dominant scale sometimes. So here's the first note is G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Pardon my singing. Do, 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 do. Now when I play it in this position, one thing you might notice right off the bat is that through that little bit of hand movement, I get a really nice clean articulation whether I'm ascending on the line or descending on the line. It makes no difference because of the hand movement. Another thing you might notice is that I'm not stretching my hand out to play the scale like this. Instead, what I'm doing is releasing the positions of the notes as I go with the hand movement. So when I play the A, I don't have to keep my first finger over the G in order to do that. Okay, so that's what I call the first finger root position of that scale. Now I'm going to play the scale with my second finger. The same exact pitches, and this is the chart that you're going to see is the second chart on the page. And that looks like this. So G with the second finger, A with the third finger, and again, hand movement, I don't keep my second finger over that spot. I don't have to, so I'm not going to waste energy stretching my hand out. I move up fret along the line of the string, down fret to play that a B with my first finger, so G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, do, 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 do. No pull-offs required in order to play the scale very quickly, clean articulations. Of course, I can use hammer-ons and pull-offs if I want to. But that's not what I'm working on right now. What I'm working on right now is practicing shifting my hand along the line so that I can get that clean articulation. That scale, you'll notice it starts on the second finger and it ends on the third. And the reflex is the same along the string. So when I was playing my first scale, I'm playing fingering pattern 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And if I continued up, that's the G, that's the top note of the scale. And I'm not going to keep on going because some of you guys are going to run out of strings. But that's the idea, is that if I started with my second finger, I'm basically starting at the top of the scale, the first finger scale, and continuing on. So the finger sequence again is 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2. Okay, and again, clean attacks, legato sound, it's not staccato, and there's no pull-offs or hammer-ons either. I can use those if I want to, but I don't have to. So what I want to practice now is getting a nice, clean, consistent tone as I move up and down the scale. So now I play the same scale with my third finger as playing the root note. So that's 3, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, F, E, D, C, B, A, G. Again, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3. Okay. There's a circular relationship between these scales. This one starts on the third finger, ends on the first. This one starts on the second finger, ends on the third. This one starts on the first finger, ends on the second. And what that means is that when I go below my root note, if I'm continuing down that line in my third finger scale, I'm using the same finger that I would use if I was playing the second finger scale, but going down. So here I go. Here's the, see how that works? 3, 2, 1. So that's the same sequence of fingerings as if I was going down below the G on the third finger position. So what's great about this three-fingered strategy is that you can substitute any one of the fingers that you're not normally going to use in the scale to move your hand up and down the board. There's a bunch of different moves to do this, and I'm going to describe them each individually now to you. So the first one of these moves is a move I call a traverse. And a traverse is where you're playing with a different finger at the same fret from what you would normally use. So when I say at the same fret, I mean I'm going to either repeat the note, like play G with my first finger and then play with my second finger, or play G with my first finger and then C with my second finger. So that is the same basic move. You can see I'm going up fret, down fret. And what I'm doing, in effect, by repeating that note with a different finger, or playing at that same fret with a different finger, is to change my position by one. So I'm going first finger position, and anytime I change at the same fret, that traverse move changes me by one position if I use the next finger. If I use the third finger, I've changed by two positions. So that's a really nice way to make a larger move down the board. And again, because all three of these scales use all three fingers on all of the strings, no matter where I land, I have a strategy for how to continue on from there. So here are some other kind of moves that you can use to change positions. This first one is called a leap. And in this move, I'm going to actually jump over the position where I normally would be. So I'm playing the scale starting in my first finger position. If I leap beyond where I would normally play the second finger and play that note with my, that would normally be played with my third finger, with my second finger. So I'm playing G to B. If I play G, B with my second finger instead of with my third finger, now I'm in the scale position that uses the second finger to play the third note of the scale. Well, if I look at my chart, I'll see that that's actually the third finger scale. So when I've made that leap, I know that I'm in this position, and I just continue up in the pattern if I want to play a scale-oriented line. You can leap the other direction too. If I'm starting with my third finger scale position, and instead of playing with my first finger, let's say I'm starting on C. If I go da da, that's a leap with my second finger down to where it would be normally played with my first finger. So I've just changed my position again. So let's give that a try. Let's just play G with our first finger. And then again, because it's hand movement that's going to make this possible, we're going to go, first let's play with the finger as it's written normally in the scale, 1, 3, G, B, and then we play G, B with the second finger. So that's the leap. Okay, you can give it a try with me. First with the third finger, G, B, and now with the second finger. Okay, The next move is called a crab walk. And in the crab walk, you think about the way a crab kind of scuttles from side to side. I'm going to reach under the position where I would normally be playing. So if I play G and A, instead of using my second finger to play the A, I'm going to use my third finger to play the A. And that enables me to move down the string. So that's how my hand is moving laterally, the way that a crab does. And the same thing works going up. If I wanted to start on my third finger scale, so that's crab walking in the other direction. Here's some other ways that you can change your position. This is called a hop. So if I go from the first finger position scale, play F with my first finger, well, now I'm in my second finger position scale. Just down below where the root is. And again, that's the end of the first finger scale. That fingering. So no matter where I land, I'm going to have the reflex to be able to continue on. Hopping's really useful if I'm playing octave melody lines. In fact, a really good strategy for that is to play lots of hand movement there to play that scale. But because hand movement is the reflex, the automatic reflex, it's not so hard to play a one-fingered scale in order to practice that kind of octave movement. Now the other thing that you saw there briefly was a slide. Anytime you slide, keeping the same finger on the string, you're changing the position as well. So that's another position shifting strategy. I'm going from first position to second position. Now I'm going to go third finger position. Repeated note there, change position. Here's another strategy called the skip. And when you skip, you actually move over a position. So let's say I'm going to play in my second finger position here. Instead of playing the D with my third finger, I'm going to play it with my first finger. And that's a big move. Skipping around in different directions, and again, because the reflex is there of how to continue on, because all three fingers are used in all the scales, I never have to think about which finger to use, and I never have to think about where the notes are, and which finger is supposed to play which particular note. I can play any finger with any note and just continue on from there. So here's my last position shifting strategy. This is called the creep. And this one I really like because it allows me to extend a line along the string, much in the same way that skipping the finger does or crab walking does. But in this sense, it's a little bit subtler. So if I'm playing a line like this where I go, do, 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 I could go, do, 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 and continue the line up. So that move is, do, do, do. I'm holding down the C, I go B, C, and then I can just continue the line along the string with no break. You don't hear it. So B with the first finger, C with the second finger, hold it, put the D in, continue the line up the string. All of these strategies for changing positions come in really handy when you want to navigate around the boundaries of the instrument. For example, if I was going to be playing on my top string, and I'll do this where everybody is going to be able to play the same notes. So if I was down in this position down at the 7th fret, just because I want everybody to be able to play these notes. So that's E, F, G, A, B, C. Well, I just used a skip. So using that skip to extend the line when I run out of strings or when I run out of frets, having these kinds of position shifting strategies is going to help me keep moving when I hit a boundary. So playing scales is fine, but it's better to have a strategy that enables us to feel the intervals that we're playing that aren't necessarily in the scale. Most melodies are not made up just of scales. They're made up of scales, repeated notes, and intervals. We've already talked about how repeated notes enables us to change positions, and also how by using hand movement to play the repeated notes, it enables us to get a nice consistent articulation and rhythm in those notes. So let's talk about how to practice the scale in order to get the most out of this concept of position shifting. So starting on the first finger, the first way I want to practice the scale, and I want to do this for each of the 3 scales that I've shown you so far, is to play the scale in the position that it's written, only substituting the fingers that we have to substitute. So for example, I'll play G with my first finger, A with my second, B with my third, and then I'll substitute the second finger for my C, okay, and then D like that. But I want to play it as an interval exercise instead of just playing the scale. So what I'm going to do is play back and forth, D, G, A, G, A, G, B, G, B, G, C, G, C, G, D, G, D, G, E, G, E, G, F, G, F, G, G. I gotta stop singing. What I'm doing is just practicing the substitutions that I need to make for those intervals that are related to the first finger. Playing the root. Now, I also want to practice this in a different way. I want to practice it by using substitutions throughout. So, for example, I would say use just my second finger for all the notes that are not the root. So I would go G, A, G, B, G, C, G, D, G, E, G, F, G, G. And again, hand motion makes this possible. I can release my positions. All the notes are going to have a nice consistent articulation because I'm moving my hand up and down the board. Same thing with the third finger, G, A, G, B, G, C, G, D, G, E, G, F, G, G. That's a lot of movement there, but a good thing to practice because you never know when you're going to need to make that move with those 2 fingers. So I'm just feeling all these different intervals. Major second, major third, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th octave. So that's with the first finger. Now I want to do the same thing with the other fingers. So if I start with my second finger and I go G, A, G, B, G, C, G, D, G, E, G, F, G, 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 F, G, E, okay. So I've played it with my first finger doing the substitutions. Now I want to do it with my third finger doing the substitutions. So I go G, A, G, B, G, C, G, D, G, E, G, F, G, G. All right. And now I want to practice playing the scale intervals with a different kind of a substitution. In this case, I'm going to play, for example, all the notes with the first finger instead of the third finger. So the second finger is going to play the root, so I go G, A, G, B, G, C, G, D, G, E, G, F, G, G. Well, that's lots of different kinds of movements there. We've got the skip. That's a normal fingering, traverse, skip, normal, traverse, and skip. So I'm doing different kinds of position shifts, but getting the feel of how the fingers are going to play those intervals in combination. Same thing with the other finger. G, A, G, B, G, C, G, D, G, E, G, F, G, G. Now, I don't practice this particular thing very often, but it's easy for me to do because I'm used to the idea of moving my hand in order to do the position shifts. So I've practiced it enough to get to the point where I can do that, and now position shifting is an automatic part of my playing. So I don't really ever have to think about position shifting when I'm soloing or when I'm working out melodies. So let me just play a little bit of this for you over a couple of chords. This is the kind of the Norwegian wood feel. And first I'm just going to play within a single position. So now I'm in my third finger position. I'm gonna leap. repeat a note. I've just gone through the second finger position, first finger position. And in a normal melodic context, here's a Charmed Life, which gives you an idea about how that's going to work. Hey, what happened there? That's the creep.